Hello, Professor. My name is Sandra Salmon, and I am in your EDSE 657 class online. I'm going to be talking about my lesson plan. The topic is classifying rocks. It's for a pre-K class. I'm just going to go through the lesson and all the different aspects of it. We're going to be meeting the New York State Pre-Kindergarten Common Core standards. Every day in this pre-K class, we have center time twice a day, once for an hour and a half and once for 45 minutes. We have circle time for 20 minutes a day, and that's when we introduce the lesson, and then the read aloud, which is 20 minutes a day. That's when we read the book about the topic that we're discussing. I have 18 students in the classroom, and I have an assistant teacher. She helps me out. I have all different centers in which I incorporate the lesson into. We will be going into that further. All these centers, they help with differentiated instruction because each center has different manipulatives and visuals, and it really helps the students who are not necessarily learners by just listening or hearing me read a book. As for the class, there's 18 students, 7 males, 11 females. There's 2 students that are special needs and have IEPs, and one of the children is a high functioning autistic kid. Her name's Marissa. In order to help her out, we're going to have a lot of sensory motor approaches to learning. We're going to ensure that the learning involves listening, hearing, seeing, touching, feeling, moving around, a lot of visuals. And the second student that has an IEP is Chris. He's handicapped. He requires a wheelchair to get around. So we're going to make sure, I personally will go into the wheelchair and make sure that there's space for him to access any center or any place of the classroom, and for him to be able to move freely and independently, because that's our goals. That's what we want for him. As for the English language learners, there's 3 in the classroom. We will have a lot of hands-on material and resources for them, a lot of tools for them to help them learn. The different centers are going to have a lot of visuals as well. As I said, they're going to meet the Common Core Learning Standards, Domain 4, Part B, for pre-K, which is craft and structure. Students interact with a variety of common types of text. So by every single different center, they're going to have either a reference book or a reference chart or all different variety of books, or they're going to have audio books. So they're just going to be able to interact with a variety of text, storybooks, and so on. The second domain they're going to be achieving is scientific thinking, organizing his or her observations of objects and events by classifying. Okay, so what I hope is that after this lesson is complete, the children can use their knowledge for classifying in future lessons and also in daily living as well. That's the outcome as well. So as for the lesson, what the language that they're going to need to know in order to properly learn this lesson is the word classify, the word characteristic, luster, dull, and texture. These words are out of the ordinary. They're new words for them, and in order for them to succeed in learning the lesson, they're going to need to know these words. Okay. For the prior thinking part of the lesson, the students actually see rocks regularly, outside, inside. They see homes. Homes are made of rocks, statues, jewelries, roads. I'm going to introduce the theme by asking the children questions. Have you ever put stuff into categories based on how they look? I know that when I was younger, I classified my Barbie dolls based on their hair color. Did you ever classify? Did you ever categorize? Can you give me a few examples of how you guys classify or separate your belongings? When they do give good examples, I'm going to compliment them. After that, I'm going to ask them, well, what do you know about rocks? And I'm going to introduce and explain rock characteristics. Color, the size, shape, which I expect them to know what those mean. And then luster, which is the shine, and texture. I'm going to help them understand what luster is and texture by showing them a ball. A shiny, bouncy ball. A red, shiny, bouncy ball. And I'm going to tell them, this shiny, bouncy ball, what's the luster? Is it shiny or is it dull? Does it not have any shine? Can you explain the texture on it? Is it soft? Is it smooth? Or is it rough? I do then plan on engaging them in the lesson by giving them a fun activity like a scavenger hunt. I'm going to allow them to go outside and pick a rock from the yard and come back inside after 3 minutes. It shouldn't take them long at all. And once they're inside, we're going to talk about all the different characteristics of the rock. And I really think this is going to help engage them in the lesson and get them interested and stimulated and whatnot. Okay. So, the procedure. Okay, I'm going to start reading the book, Let's Go Rock Collecting. It's actually a great book. The imagery on it is amazing. So many colors. Illustration on it is great. I have that book. It's a great book. And I'm gonna have all the children near me so that they could see the book. And I'm going to show them the pictures. And I'm going to show, while I'm reading aloud, I'm going to read it pretty loud just so everyone can hear. And they're going to be around me. They're going to be fairly close. And I'm going to make sure everyone's hearing the story. We're going to discuss the characteristics of the rocks we see in the books as we go along. We're going to talk about the color, the shape, the texture, the luster. I'm going to explain the words. I'm going to explain it by showing what it actually is. And I want them to tell me, are any of these rocks similar to the ones we collected in our scavenger hunt? Then I'm going to just ask them, oh, did everyone understand what we just did? Did they understand what we discussed about characteristics? Blink your eye if you didn't understand. And of course, they're all going to blink, so no one has to feel left out. And once they do that, I'm just going to go over the terms again, just because I feel it's really crucial for them to understand these terms. I don't think they're able to succeed in the lesson and classifying without understanding these terms. So now they're gonna have center time, and in all these centers, I incorporated various ways in which they can learn and rocks in all these different centers. So the art center, the children are going to get creative. They could draw a rock and what they feel a rock looks like. So they could also paint. And I'm going to have a reference book there, and they're going to go through the book and decide which rock they want to paint or which rock they want to draw. I think this is good because it incorporates literacy into the art center as well. They're going to have nonfiction books there that they could use as references because these nonfiction books all have pictures of rocks, photographs that are zoomed into these pictures, and they can copy these pictures, try to paint them, try to draw them, just creative way to incorporate rocks into the lesson. Okay, the following center is going to be the library center. These are books that I'm familiar with. It's called they're called Stone Soup, Everybody Needs a Rock. They have great illustration. My favorite actually is Under One Rock. It's a wonderful book. It's pretty big, and the imagery is beautiful. It's like science fiction a little, and it talks about how a child he goes and he's curious and he goes under every rock, and under every rock he finds a different animal or a different insect or a different creature, and it just goes through his journey of looking under the rocks. So my assistant's going to be reading the books for them. There's not going to be more than 4 kids at a center at a time, so she's going to be able to read it to them. The English language learners are going to be at the center at the same time so that she could read a book at their comprehension. I'm going to include books for all levels of comprehension to ensure that everyone's learning abilities are met. Then I'm going to have the dramatic play center. Children are going to pretend to be geologists. We're going to have materials, rocks, magnifying glass, buckets, headlamps. The children are going to use different books in the centers as references to try and identify the different types of rocks. I'm going to ask them to categorize the rocks based on their characteristics. So I will say, categorize these rocks based on their color. Or this group categorized their rocks based on their luster. Okay. Then I'm going to have a computer center. This has audiobooks, and it also has games on it. It has a game called Name That Rock, and it also has pictures of rocks, and pick the color that the rock is, blue, red, yellow, and so on. The students are able to listen and watch audiobooks while following along. Yeah, so the computer center is great because they could actually, it reads the story to you, and it's out loud, and it highlights the words as it goes along. So it's a great visual. It helps the kids actually see the text and hear the word at the same time. Then we're going to have a science center that's also available. It's going to be a bunch of rocks on the table with hand lenses, all for them to examine. And I'm going to ask them and encourage them to pay close attention to color, size, texture, shape. We're going to discuss observations, similarities, and differences between the rocks. And I want to put in a Venn diagram chart. I plan on introducing the Venn diagram chart to them. It's well, I'm sure you know. So I'm just going to tell them, the similarities go in the middle, and you compare the rocks. You write one rock is like this and one rock is like that. What color is this rock? What color is that rock? Whatever they have in common goes in the middle. Then I'm going to have a writing center. This actually is great because they could practice their writing in it. I'm going to encourage them to write the letter R using stencils and write the word rock. They can even write the different types of rocks if they like using the stencils. And this is going to help include literacy and writing into the lesson. They can use the book to see the different names of rocks, and then they could write the names of those rocks, their choice, what they want to write. The sand table is going to have rocks hidden in them, and the students will have to find those rocks. They're going to dig it up with the shovel and pails, find the rocks in the sand, and the students will have to name those rocks by looking at the reference chart, and they're going to label them. Okay, so how did I incorporate differentiation into this lesson? Well, I believe I used a lot of different hands-on visuals, a lot of resources, a lot of manipulatives, and in the library I have many different books for all different levels, and they could pick a book that the assistant could help them read a book that's to their level of comprehension. As for differentiation in the classroom, I plan on having, I love this. I plan on having pictures of all different children from all over the world around with different types of foods, different types of traditions, different types of clothing, just to show that everything is accepted. Every culture is accepted, and we gladly accept every culture. I do plan on having a wall that says hi in every language, well, in most languages, and written in that language as well. I plan on greeting the parents in their native language. I will try my hardest. And yeah, so I'm going to make all the kids feel welcome regardless of their culture. Everyone is accepted, and I'm going to make sure the children understand that. Once the lesson is finished, I'm planning on having accountable talk. So I'm going to ask, can anyone tell me what we covered today? And once one child responds, I plan on building on what that child responded by calling on another kid and having him add to that child, and so on until the whole class is engaged in the conversation. I'm going to ask many open-ended questions even throughout the lesson. When I'm walking by the centers, I plan on asking many open-ended questions. That's also how I'm going to be assessing them during the lesson, by asking them questions and seeing how they answer and watching them do their work. I'm going to ask, how do we classify objects? What else can we classify? Because I really feel it's important that although we're classifying rocks now, I want them to be able to take what we learned and apply it to everyday living. Prior to the lesson, I do plan on reading the classroom rules. They're very simple. There's very few rules. The rules include no calling out, be kind to one another, play safely, and follow instructions. And if someone happens to call out, I'm just going to ask them to refer back to the rules and read it out loud for me, and that's all that we're gonna do. If a child is misbehaving, doing something minor that's really not bothering anyone, I think I'm going to tend to ignore that unless it's really a disturbance and they happen to not be paying attention. Okay, so prior to the lesson, I'm going to be giving an informal assessment. That's when I ask them, what do you classify? What do you know about rocks? I just want to get a feel of where they stand. During the lesson, that's when me and my assistant walk around. I'm going to actually have a paper and pen, and I'm going to see who actually got a feel and understanding of what we discussed and is doing the right thing, classifying properly, and and playing properly in the different centers, joining the centers properly. Once I'm done the lesson, and I'm going to make it a trend that after every lesson I give out 3 index cards: a green, a yellow, and red. The red is going to indicate that they did understand the lesson. The yellow is going to indicate that they understood the lesson, but they have some questions, and the green is going to indicate that they didn't understand anything at all. And I'm going to pull those children out the next day in the morning circle and discuss the lesson with them further. Okay, that's my lesson plan. Thank you.